My name is Evelyn. Evelyn Bennett. I'm 34 years old. And I will never forget the day my mother-in-law tried to erase me from existence. It happened in a lawyer's office on a rainy Tuesday in November. Mahogany walls. Fluorescent lights that hummed too loudly, the kind of hum that gets inside your skull and stays there for hours after you leave. The smell of old paper and expensive cologne and the faint trace of rain on wool coats. Outside, the rain hadn't stopped for 3 days. The gutters were overflowing. The streets were slick with leaves. It felt like the whole world was crying. 11 people sat around a long conference table. Family. Lawyers. Witnesses. My mother-in-law at the head, like a queen holding court. My husband beside me, though he might as well have been on the moon for all the support he offered. And one woman, Eleanor, who smiled like she had already won the war before the first shot was fired. Her name is Eleanor. My husband's mother. For 10 years, she called me daughter. For 10 years, she hugged me at holidays, held my children, cried with me at funerals, sent me birthday cards with handwritten notes that said, "Love, Mom." She was at my wedding, crying happy tears. She was in the delivery room when Emma was born, holding my hand. She called me every Sunday just to talk. But when my father-in-law's will was read, the mask came off. Not slowly, like peeling a bandage. All at once. Like a slap across the face in front of everyone you love. The new document, the lawyer said, adjusting his glasses with trembling fingers, leaves everything to Eleanor Bennett. The house. The investments. The family business. The trust accounts. The vacation home. The cars. Everything. Evelyn Bennett receives nothing. Nothing. I remember how that word hung in the air. 2 syllables that landed like stones in still water, sending ripples across every face at that table. Nothing. No house. No money. No claim to the family I had served for a decade. No recognition of the nights I stayed up with Robert when he was sick, the meals I cooked, the appointments I drove him to, the tears I wiped from his eyes when he was afraid. Nothing. I remember how my mother-in-law's eyes met mine across the table. Cold. Victorious. Cruel in a way I had never seen before. How she tilted her head slightly, like a bird watching something small and wounded try to crawl away from her. "I'm sorry, Evelyn," she said. And she was not sorry at all. Her voice was honey over broken glass, sweet on the surface, sharp underneath. Before I tell you what happened next, before I tell you about the key, the safe, the recording that destroyed everything Eleanor built, take a moment to like and subscribe to the channel. Tell me in the comments, have you ever been betrayed by someone who pretended to love you? Now, let me start at the beginning. Let me show you what Eleanor forgot. My father-in-law, Robert Bennett, was not a complicated man. He built a construction company from nothing, started with a single rusty truck and a toolbox his own father gave him on his 18th birthday. That toolbox still sat on his desk until the day he died. He never let anyone move it. By the time I married his son, he owned 40 trucks, 200 employees, and a reputation for being fair when no one was watching. People in our town knew his name. They trusted him. When Robert shook your hand, you didn't need a contract. But he never forgot where he came from. He still packed his own lunch. Still woke up at 5 in the morning. Still called his employees by their first names and asked about their kids. That's why he liked me, I think. I wasn't from money. I was a nurse. I worked night shifts in the ICU while my husband, Daniel, finished his MBA. I held dying people's hands for a living. I watched families fall apart and come back together. I knew what really mattered. Robert respected that. He would call me at 6 in the morning after my shift ended just to ask how I was doing. Not about the business. Not about his son. About me. "You're good for him," he used to say, his voice gravelly from sleep. "You remind him what matters. Money comes and goes, Evelyn. Character stays. Don't ever let anyone make you feel small because you work with your hands and your heart." And for a while, I believed my marriage was strong. Daniel and I met in college, in the library, both reaching for the same book about European history. Our hands touched. He smiled. I smiled. 3 years later, he proposed in that same library, down on one knee between the stacks. He was quiet, thoughtful, the kind of man who remembered small things: how I took my coffee, the name of my childhood dog, the anniversary of my mother's death. He left me little notes on the bathroom mirror. He sang off-key in the shower. He made me laugh. We built a life slowly, carefully. A small apartment first, with furniture from garage sales and a leaky faucet we never fixed. Then a house with a garden where I planted tomatoes that never grew. Then our daughter, Emma, who came into the world screaming and never stopped smiling. When Daniel joined his father's company, we moved into a bigger house. 4 bedrooms. A porch swing. A yard big enough for Emma to run. A kitchen with an island. A fireplace. Everything I had ever wanted. Eleanor was always there. In the beginning, I thought she loved me. She helped plan our wedding, choosing flowers and tasting cakes for hours. She cried when Emma was born, real tears that wet her cheeks and stained her blouse. She called me her second daughter in front of everyone at Thanksgiving dinner, and I believed her. But looking back now, I see the cracks. The small cruelties disguised as kindness. The comments that landed like paper cuts, tiny at first, then deeper over time. "You look tired, Evelyn. Are you sleeping enough? Maybe you're working too hard. Emma is getting so tall. She looks more like Daniel every day. That's good. She has his features. I'm sure you're doing your best with what you have. Not everyone is cut out for this life." She didn't like that Robert trusted me. She didn't like that he asked my opinion about business decisions, decisions she had no part in, decisions that should have been family only in her mind. She didn't like that he put my name on the family trust, something she discovered by accident while going through his desk and never forgave. "Keep this between us," Robert said one afternoon, about 6 months before he died. He was already sick then. His hands shook when he poured his coffee. The tremors had started in his right hand and spread to his left over the course of a year. His doctors didn't know why. "Eleanor doesn't understand," he continued. "She thinks money is control. But it's not. Money is responsibility. And I'm trusting you with that responsibility, Evelyn. Not because you married my son. Because you earned it." I didn't understand what he meant. Not until the funeral. Robert died on a Tuesday. Heart attack. Sudden. He was 71 years old, and despite the tremors, despite the fatigue, despite everything, the doctors said his heart was strong. They had run tests. They had given him a clean bill of health 6 weeks earlier. But hearts lie. Or maybe hearts just break when no one is looking. I got the call at 3:47 in the morning. I was home with Emma. Daniel was away on business, or so he said. Later I would learn he wasn't on business at all. But that's a different part of the story. The hospital chaplain's voice was soft, practiced, the kind of softness you learn when you deliver death news every day. I had heard that voice before, from the other side. I had been the one holding the hand. Now I was the one receiving the blow. "Mrs. Bennet, your father-in-law has passed." "I'm so sorry." He went peacefully. He wasn't alone. I held Emma's hand at the funeral. She was 7 years old, wearing a black dress that made her look too grown up, too serious, too aware of a world that could take people away without warning. Daniel stood beside me, quiet as always, his face a mask I couldn't read. He didn't cry. He didn't hold my hand. He just stood there like a statue. And Eleanor stood at the grave like a queen surveying her kingdom. Black veil, black dress, black gloves. She didn't cry. Not once. Not a single tear. Her mascara didn't run. Her nose didn't redden. She stood there dry-eyed while everyone else sobbed. I thought she was being strong. That's what I told myself. She's being strong for the family. She's holding it together because someone has to. I was wrong. She wasn't being strong. She was waiting. She had been waiting for years. 3 days after the funeral, we gathered for the reading of the will. The lawyer's office was downtown, in a building Robert had helped construct 30 years ago. He had laid the cornerstone himself. Irony, I would later think, that the building he built would become the stage for his wife's betrayal. I sat between Daniel and Emma. Eleanor sat at the head of the table. Her sister, Margaret, sat beside her, thin-lipped and watchful, like a vulture waiting for something to die. And across from me sat a lawyer I had never met before. Not Robert's usual lawyer. Someone new. Younger. Clean-shaven. Expensive suit. Too expensive. The kind of suit that costs more than my first car. The original will, the lawyer began, sliding a document across the table, dated 5 years ago, left 40% of the estate to Evelyn Bennett, 40% to Daniel Bennett, and 20% to Eleanor. He paused. Let that sink in. Let everyone at that table imagine what that meant. Then he pulled out a second document. Thicker. Newer. The paper still had that fresh print smell, like it had been signed yesterday. However, a codicil was added 3 months before Robert's death, and a new will was executed 1 month before he passed. These documents supersede the original will in their entirety. Eleanor smiled. It was the smile of someone who has already counted her winnings, already spent the money in her head, already planned the renovations to the house. The new will was simple. Brutally simple. 1 page. 11 paragraphs. Clear, cold, devastating. Eleanor received everything. The house. The company. The investments. The trust. The cars. The vacation property in the mountains. The art collection. The jewelry. Everything. Daniel received a small cash gift, $50,000. Enough to seem generous. Not enough to matter. A consolation prize. And I received nothing. I don't understand, I said. My voice sounded far away, like it was coming from the end of a long tunnel. Robert told me. Robert was ill, Eleanor interrupted smoothly, her voice like warm milk. His mind wasn't what it used to be. The new will reflects his true wishes. You understand, don't you, Evelyn? The illness affected his judgment. He wasn't himself at the end. That's not true, I said. I was with him every day. I took him to his appointments. I held his hand when he was scared. I read to him when he couldn't sleep. His mind was fine. His mind was sharper than yours. The room went quiet. Margaret gasped. The lawyer cleared his throat and shuffled papers. Someone's phone buzzed and went unanswered. Eleanor's smile didn't waver. She had expected resistance. She had prepared for it. She had been preparing for years. The witnesses, she said calmly, confirm everything. 2 independent witnesses. Both reputable. Both with no reason to lie. Their affidavits are notarized. Their statements are sworn. Who? I demanded, my voice rising. Margaret, my sister. And Thomas Crane, Daniel's colleague from the office. Good men. Honest men. Men who knew Robert and would never lie about his wishes. My blood turned to ice. Margaret was Eleanor's sister. She would say anything. Thomas Crane was Daniel's friend. He would do anything. I turned slowly to face my husband. You knew about this? Daniel wouldn't look at me. He stared at the table, at his folded hands, at a spot on the wood grain that had suddenly become the most interesting thing in the world. Daniel. My voice was sharper now, a blade. Look at me. He looked. And what I saw in his eyes was not confusion. Not doubt. Not sadness. It was calculation. Cold, quiet calculation. Like he was measuring how much this would cost him versus how much he would gain. I thought it was what Dad wanted, he said quietly. He talked about changing things. About simplifying. I didn't ask for details. You thought. I could barely breathe. My chest was tight. You thought. You didn't ask me? You didn't tell me? You didn't think to mention that your mother was rewriting the will behind my back. Evelyn. Eleanor's voice cut through mine like a blade. This is not the time or place for hysterics. The will is legal. The witnesses have sworn affidavits. You can contest it if you wish. You will lose. You will spend thousands of dollars on lawyers. You will drag this family through the mud. And you will still lose. She reached into her leather bag, a bag that cost more than my monthly rent, and pulled out a sealed envelope. Thick paper. Handwritten address. Robert's name at the bottom in what looked like his signature. But before you embarrass yourself further, she continued, sliding the envelope across the polished table, you should read this. Robert wrote it 2 weeks before he died. It explains everything. It explains why he changed his mind. It explains why you're not in the will. I didn't want to touch it. Every instinct told me to leave it there. But my hands reached for it anyway. My fingers tore open the seal. Inside was a letter. 1 page. Handwritten. Short. Cruel. Devastating. It said I had tried to manipulate Robert. That I had pressured him to change the will in my favor. That I had whispered lies in his ear while he was weak and medicated. That I had taken advantage of his illness. That he was deeply disappointed in me. That he regretted ever trusting me. I had never seen those words before. Because Robert never wrote them. The handwriting, I said, my voice shaking now, trembling with rage and grief and disbelief. This isn't his. Look at the loops. Look at the pressure. Look at the way the letters connect. Robert's hand shook. His letters were uneven. Some were darker than others. He couldn't write in a straight line. This is too perfect. Too practiced. Too smooth. Eleanor's smile flickered. Just for a second. Just a tiny crack in the mask. But I saw it. Everyone saw it. The witnesses saw him sign it, she said, but her voice was tighter now. Your sister saw him sign it, I replied. And some friend of Daniel's. That's not witnesses. That's a conspiracy. That's fraud. That's forgery. The lawyer raised a hand. Mrs. Bennet, if you're suggesting forgery, you'll need evidence. Serious evidence. Do you have evidence? I looked around the table. 11 faces staring at me. Some sympathetic. Most not. My husband, who had already chosen his side. My mother-in-law, who had planned this for months, maybe years. My daughter, too young to understand what was happening, playing with her hair, swinging her legs under the chair. I had nothing. No proof. No allies. No voice. No power. Or so they thought. But then I remembered something. A conversation. A key. A promise. 2 weeks before Robert died, when Eleanor was at her bridge club, he had called me to his room. He was tired that day. His voice was thin. His hands were still for once, resting on the blanket. But his eyes were sharp. Piercing. Alive in a way his body wasn't. Evelyn, he said. Come here. Close the door. Lock it. I sat on the edge of his bed. He reached under his pillow and pulled out a small brass key. Old. Tarnished. Heavy. The kind of key that belonged to something built decades ago, when things were made to last. What is this? I asked. There's a safe, he said. In the attic of the old house. The one we lived in before we built the new one. The house on Maple Street. Eleanor doesn't know about it. I never told her. I never told anyone except you. He coughed. Caught his breath. His chest rattled like stones in a can. I put things in there. Important things. Things that will matter when I'm gone. The original will. Deeds. Bank statements. Photographs. And a letter. A letter explaining everything. Everything Eleanor will try to hide. Everything. I whispered. He grabbed my wrist. His grip was weak but desperate. His fingernails dug into my skin, not hard enough to hurt, but hard enough to feel. Eleanor is going to try something when I'm gone, he said. I don't know what exactly. I don't know how far she'll go. But she will. She's been planning for years. Moving money. Making connections. Laying groundwork. Building her case. She thinks I don't notice. But I notice everything, Evelyn. I've been watching her for 30 years. Then why don't you stop her? I asked. Why don't you change the will yourself? Why don't you tell the lawyer? Why don't you protect me now? He smiled sadly. His eyes were wet. Because I'm dying, Evelyn. And because sometimes the only way to catch a liar is to let them lie. Let her show her true colors. Let her hang herself with her own rope. The truth will come out. It always does. He pressed the key into my palm and closed my fingers around it, folding my hand into a fist. If she comes for you, he said, go to the safe. Use this key. And show them everything. Every single thing. Don't be afraid. Don't back down. Don't let her win. He let go of my wrist. Closed his eyes. His breathing slowed. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you while I was alive, he whispered. This is the best I can do. The only thing I can do. Use it well. That was the last real conversation we ever had. 2 days later, he couldn't speak anymore. A week later, he was gone. Back in the lawyer's office, I looked at Eleanor's triumphant face. At Daniel's empty eyes. At the fake will, the forged letter, the paid witnesses, the lies layered on lies. Then I reached into my purse. "I don't have evidence?" I said quietly. My voice was calm now. "Steady." The shaking had stopped. "Let me show you something." I pulled out the brass key. It caught the fluorescent light and glowed gold against my palm. Eleanor's smile disappeared. Her face went pale. Her hands gripped the edge of the table. "What is that?" she asked. But her voice had changed. There was something new in it. Something I had never heard from her before. Fear. "This," I said, holding the key up so everyone could see, "is the key to a safe you didn't know existed. A safe your husband hid from you. A safe hidden in the attic of the old house on Maple Street. A safe that contains the original will, the Betrayal will, and a recording of Robert stating his true wishes in his own voice." "You're lying," Eleanor said. But she was pale now. The color had drained from her cheeks. Her lipstick looked like blood on a white sheet. "Call Harold Finch," I said to the lawyer. "He's been Robert's attorney for 30 years. He was his friend. He was at his wedding. Ask him if he was present when Robert recorded his final testament. Ask him if he knows about the safe. Ask him if he has a copy of the key." The lawyer hesitated. He looked at Eleanor. He looked at me. He looked at the key in my hand. Then he picked up his phone. Eleanor stood up. Her chair scraped against the floor. "This is ridiculous. This is absurd. This is a trick. She's trying to delay the inevitable. She's trying to steal what doesn't belong to her." "Sit down, Eleanor," I said. My voice was calm. Steady. Cold. I had never felt more in control in my entire life. "Sit down and wait." The lawyer made the call. We waited in silence. Margaret was fidgeting, twisting her rings. Daniel wouldn't look at anyone. Emma asked if we could go home. I squeezed her hand and told her soon. Then the lawyer hung up. His face was different now. Pale. Shocked. He looked at Eleanor like he was seeing her for the first time. "Harold confirms," he said slowly, "that Robert recorded a video testament 3 months before his death. He confirms the original will is valid. He confirms that the new will was never witnessed by anyone Robert knew or trusted. And he confirms that Eleanor was aware of the safe and attempted to access it without authorization last year. The police were notified, but no charges were filed at Robert's request." The room exploded. Margaret started crying, real tears this time, not performance tears. Daniel buried his face in his hands and didn't come up. The lawyer was already writing notes, trying to figure out how to fix this. And Eleanor just stared at me. Her mask had fallen. Underneath was something ugly. Something desperate. Something broken. "You think you've won?" she whispered. Spit gathered at the corners of her mouth. "I know I have," I said. I stood up, picked up my daughter, slipped the key back into my purse, walked to the door. "The police will be in touch about the forgery," I said over my shoulder. "And Eleanor? The house? The company? The trust? It's mine now. Robert wanted it that way. Robert planned it that way. Robert trusted me, not you. Never you." I walked out without looking back. Behind me, I heard Eleanor screaming. I heard Daniel calling my name, begging me to stop. I heard Margaret sobbing and the lawyer trying to calm everyone down. None of it mattered, because Robert had given me the key, not just to a safe, but to the truth. And the truth, when you finally let it out, is louder than any lie. It's been 6 months since that day. I live in the old house now. The one with the attic. The one on Maple Street. The one Robert refused to sell, even when Eleanor begged him to. Emma has her own room. She has a swing in the backyard. She has a garden where we plant tomatoes that still won't grow. She has peace. Daniel comes to see her every other weekend. He doesn't stay long. He doesn't look me in the eye. He doesn't apologize. I don't ask him to. Some wounds don't heal. Some trusts don't come back. Eleanor tried to sue. The recording made sure she lost. The courts are reviewing her finances now, the money she moved, the accounts she hid, the lies she told. I don't know what will happen to her. Prison, maybe. Financial ruin, certainly. And honestly, I don't care. Robert gave me that key for a reason. He knew his wife. He knew his son. And he knew that the only person who would fight for what was right was the one who wasn't blood. Family isn't about who shares your last name. It's not about DNA or marriage certificates or who sits at your Thanksgiving table. Family is about who shows up when you have nothing left. Who hands you a key when everyone else is trying to lock you out? Who believes in you even when they're dying? I had nothing the day that will was read. No allies. No proof. No voice. No power. Just a key I didn't fully understand. But sometimes that's all you need. One key. One truth. One moment of courage. And the whole lie comes crashing down.